DIY trauma healing techniques. Now, I am Carrie Blazer, a mother, shaman, and author, and I take a multidisciplinary approach to healing trauma, to teaching people how to turn their emotional wounds into personal wisdom, to elevate their life and attract more positive abundance into their life. So let's keep going and see what we have today. Today, to get the most out of the webinar, please be sure that you have water, a notebook, pen, and a mirror or a phone, because when we learn Carl Jung's best DIY trauma healing technique, you're going to need one or the other. Before we begin, please make sure that you can agree to these 3 things. First, this work requires presence. That's why the pen and the notebook are necessary. Not multitasking, not passive listening. If you want to transform your life, you need to listen, open your heart, and absorb what I'm teaching you. Agreement 2, you take accountability for your problems in order to transform your life. There are no victims here. No one's being oppressed. Our souls plan our lives based on our wounds for self-improvement opportunities. We live in a holographic universe. The universe is a mirror. We're going to learn all how that works today. Not only the wisdom, but the science behind it based on the laws of physics. And agreement 3, you agree to leave Riverside open until your upload is complete on your tab. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. So important, this training works best when you take notes, stay engaged, and ask real questions. Then type them in the chat and I'll answer them directly. So here is the breakthrough context. I don't heal people. I teach people how to heal themselves. That's why it's DIY. That's how I did it. I had to learn how to transform the wounds into wisdom inside of my own soul. I had to learn how to operate my soul, and that's what I'm here to teach you how to do. Teach you how to do that today. We all have energy bodies. Physicists have proven this, and that's what I mean by a soul. So today I'm going to teach you how to operate your energy body so you can attract in more positive abundance into your life. So quick question for the chat, true or false? I'm done circling the same internal patterns and I'm ready to resolve them. Type true if that's you. If that's not you, this training is not for you. So before we go any further, why you can trust this. I did it myself first. I went from a suicide attempt to becoming a shaman to experiencing enlightenment all in just 5 years, most of which by following my intuition, by learning how to listen to my inner guidance. That took me to people, took me to which videos on YouTube to watch, what to say to people, by learning how to listen to myself. I had a very traumatic childhood. So I had a lot of wounds to turn into wisdom. You know, I got married, I have 3 kids, and as a mother with 3 grown kids, I attempted suicide. That's how bad it was. I have a master's degree in East Asian Religious Studies from UCSB. So I learned Chinese and classical Chinese and translated 12th century Taoist texts and went to Tibet and lived in Israel. My ex-husband's Israeli and we met in Tibet. I mean, you know, I went looking for answers. But, you know, it's kind of like the song Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. Well, I was looking for love outside of myself, and that is all the wrong places. The place where I needed to look for love is inside of my own heart for myself, to bring out all the beautiful qualities that my soul has to offer. So I take a multidisciplinary approach to healing. I definitely lean on the science behind the wisdom, and that I love that. Grounded in neuroscience and physics and used with military, FBI, and first responders. So my core insight, you are a soul operating a nervous system. Right? Well, you probably heard, well, you have to reparent yourself. Well, what does that mean? That means learn to recalibrate your nervous system for love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame, because a traumatic childhood programs your nervous system for fear, guilt, and shame. And we're going to rely heavily on an Einstein quote today, that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. What does that mean? The field? Well, the field is the energy field, the particle meaning the body. Particles don't control particles, an energy field controls a particle. We're going to learn how blood moves in a spiral inside the fetus before a heart ever even forms. The field is the sole governing agency of a particle. We're going to learn today how the heart is a vortex, like a black hole, and you can't command a heart or a vortex. Yeah, we're going to learn a lot of things today. I'm a full nerd. Okay. So, but if you don't know how to operate your soul, it will operate you like your subconscious. Before I healed, I had a lot of dysfunctional behavior patterns. And that was my subconscious trying to show me I had all these wounds, all these lies, all this shame, guilt, and fear repressed inside of me that was trying to come out of me because it's not healthy. I mean, living in an energy field that's filled with shame, guilt, and fear, does that sound healthy? Because it doesn't sound very healthy to me, right? But when we release that shame, guilt, and fear, and we turn it into wisdom and knowledge, we learn how to process our emotions, learn how to surf the waves of life, then we're getting somewhere. So let's get somewhere. So let's be honest about today. I'm going to share my multidisciplinary sources of wisdom and knowledge. I lean on top tier scientists to help me explain what I experienced personally and how healing works. We're going to do a deep dive into how I healed from my childhood trauma to help you glean insight and wisdom from that. I will explain how to implement my self-love strategies into your life from the free ebook. I will reveal my recommendations for other DIY trauma healing techniques. And I will explore how to heal by yourself. But I'll let you know I had help from others. And so at the end, if you'd like more assistance, I will discuss how to work with me privately at the end of the webinar. Let me check real quick to make sure I don't have anyone to let in, but no, we're okay. All righty. So here are the 6 free DIY trauma healing techniques you will learn today. First, we're going to go over my 6 divine feminine self-love techniques or strategies, the free ebook that you got. Then we're going to go over my recommendations for daily healing, which are all you can explore on your own. And then you have my YouTube channel. There'll be a meditation shamanic drumming video that I'll introduce you to. And if we have time today, we'll do that as well. Then we'll discuss my trauma healing discussion and techniques, which are all on my YouTube channel as well and free to you. The Carl Jung's mirror exercise and how you can just bypass talk therapy and see yourself and process your wounds through. A Lakota star feeding healing technique that engages both sides of the brain, bringing coherence to your nervous system. And then recommendations for other professionals. And those are all the professionals I'll share along the way that I really admire and have learned from. So my multidisciplinary sources of wisdom and knowledge, my intuition, my inner guidance, psychology, cardiology, the heart is a vortex, neuroscience, how we recalibrate our nervous system to resonate with love, compassion, and enlightenment instead of fear, guilt, and shame. Shamanism, laws of physics, mysticism, family medicine, and epigenetics. So I pull from a lot of different sources because I learned that when something is true, it's true in multiple places. And when the universe expresses a truth, it is expressed both as wisdom and as knowledge. And here's an example. So wisdom says the universe is a mirror, showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. Knowledge says we attract what we are through energetic resonance, meaning a vibrational match. Knowledge also says the heart is a vortex, like a black hole, so which projects, outward, and then we can see the boundary, like a black hole. And that reconfirms how we're a holographic universe. We live in a holographic universe. Okay, let's keep going. So shamanism, let's start with my book. So my path to healing, I had a very traumatic childhood. I was born in 1970. My parents got divorced in 1976. And I lived with my mom and my brother in an apartment, even though I was born and raised in a very affluent town. And I got a job at 12. I started working at Hot Dog on a Stick. I started my 6-year career at Hot Dog on a Stick when I was 14. And I bought my own car. And so, and I was busy in my masculinity my whole life, like I have an undergraduate degree, 2 undergraduate degrees in Chinese and religious studies. I traveled by myself in China in the early 90s and got to Tibet and Israel and Australia, and I got a master's degree. And but I didn't know how to be healthy in my femininity. I had a lot of failed relationships. I didn't know how, like, forgiveness. I only learned how to say I'm sorry just in a healthy way in my late 40s. My mom was an alcoholic, my dad was a workaholic. So, it was very challenging to I had to kind of figure out, we call it reparent myself and figure out how to be a grown, healthy woman. I knew how to be a grown, healthy, a grown masculine woman, but that wasn't healthy. I mean, in my 40s, I had 4 to 7 migraines per week. I got divorced after 10 years. I still don't, like right now, I spend all my time alone. I don't have healthy friendships. So, I really had to figure out what is a healthy woman and what is a healthy man. And you can see here my book in the picture, and my book is My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain. And that's what I've been exploring my whole life. I mean, I shut my heart down. I don't remember a time in my childhood where I wasn't shut down, where I didn't struggle to connect to people. My whole life I struggled to connect. And so when I found this Cherokee proverb, shamanism, it really helped me understand, well, what is a woman? There's a huge debate going on now in Western society. Well, what does a man do? Well, man provides and protects. Well, what does a woman do? Oh, we do what we want. Well, no. If there's a masculine lane, there's a feminine lane. So, I explored what is a feminine lane. And this proverb, a woman's highest calling is to lead a man to his soul so as to unite him with source. A man's highest calling is to protect a woman so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. So the woman does the inner work and the man does the outer work. But, I come from a Christian worldview where the man is a spiritual lead of the family. But women, are designed for that inner work. Femininity is the compassion, nurturing, forgiveness, creativity, intuition. That's the inner work. So why have I been taught the opposite, and is that healthy? All right, let's keep exploring. So more on shamanism. I remember this quote is, really helped me understand, okay, and be grateful for my challenges in life. And this is a paragraph from my book, so let's read it together. I often come across a quote in spiritual circles that resonates deeply. Even the box of emotional darkness he left me with was a gift. By keeping Jared at a distance, one of the men in my book, I locked away an immense box of emotional pain, fear, and insecurity within myself. When I finally reached out to him recently, I had no idea I had triggered a flood of buried emotions. But now I see the truth. The process of transforming those wounds into wisdom is the very gift he left me with. And now I understand that it's very kind of different perspective to look at emotional pain as a gift. But one of my teachings in the ebook is learn to surf the waves of life. And this next piece of wisdom goes along with that, which says that life is like jumping on a trampoline. The deeper you go, the higher you fly per the laws of physics. And we'll see this physics experiment in a little bit about how learning to surf the waves of life is really what gives the kinetic energy, the necessary propulsion to move up and down our emotional waves. And fluctuating energy, oscillating energy is alive energy. Stuck energy is dead energy. So if we want to be dead, we stay stuck. But if we want to stay alive, we have to learn how to move through our emotions. We all have an energy body. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. And so when we learn and accept that we have an energy body and energy has to move, and that what we're moving through is our soul communicates via emotions out through our heart, and our heart's a vortex. You see how we're putting all these pieces together? So let's keep going. So a piece of old shamanic wisdom that I just love is when a member of the tribe went to the shaman with anxiety or depression, the shaman would ask, when was the last time you danced, sang, or experienced joy? When's the last time you had joy, happiness, peace, compassion, love in your energy field? There's the wisdom behind the knowledge that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Because all of those, experiences bring, change the energy inside of someone, anxiety and depression. If you want to keep that in your energy field and not process your emotions through and stay stuck, then that's what's killing you, in quotes. That's what's bringing you down. That's what's lowering your energy. So let's learn how all this functions. Laws of physics and Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a neuroscientist and he specializes in how to heal trauma. And we're going to start with, two of the best, Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Albert Einstein, like we've talked about, and Tesla. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Think in terms of the field. Think in terms of the energy field. So I'm going to stop sharing this one and I'll share the video so that we can all see how this works with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Einstein said the field, the wave, the energy is the sole governing agency of the particle. Energy controls matter. He didn't say particle controls the particle. He said the field controls the particle. If you change the information in the field, can you change the projection, the particle in three-dimensional reality? This is a holographic universe. So if the quantum field is an invisible field of energy that exists beyond our senses, beyond our body, our environment, and time, and the only way we are going to connect to it is take all of our attention off our body, all of our attention off the environment. What's the environment made of? People, objects, things, places, and take all of your attention off of linear time, the predictable future and the familiar past, and find the sweet spot of the generous present moment. That's the unknown. That's the door. That's the moment you become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time. That is the moment you are pure consciousness. And that is the moment you're walking through the door to the quantum field. Einstein.
The quantum field. So I will help you walk through the door to your own quantum field. But let's get back to my presentation and learn more about how to utilize these 6 DIY trauma healing techniques. Okay, so after the first time I experienced enlightenment was March of 2024. And it was quite the event. I spent 3 days in my recliner, vibrating super high. The second morning, I was like vibrating really high, and I heard in my head, enlightenment, enlightenment, enlightenment. And then I was told, ask the universe, for your wisdom. And so this is what I was shown. I was shown that there's I've helped several first responders. So first I was shown the arc of first responders. I'm like, well, they all have mental illness. I'm a healer. I'm concerned with mental illness. That's what I was shown. Well, all the first responders have mental illness. And then next I was shown, I'm like, oh, well, the family. Oh, the family. Well, there's lots of divorce, lots of mental illness there. Oh, relationships. Oh, lots of okay. I'm like, okay, take me back to the beginning. There was God, and then what? Like, I was just trying to understand, like, how we had gotten to this place. But what I didn't understand is that it was basically asking the question, why did things have to get so dark? And what I know now is things had to get so dark to catapult me up to so bright enlightenment. And that's the laws of physics, right? The deeper you go, the higher you fly based on the laws of physics. Life is like jumping on a trampoline. So I expanded my consciousness first by going deep into my fear, guilt, and shame. And then that catapulted me up to enlightenment. That was, a huge epiphany for me, right? And so when that happened, so I saw that, and then I asked, so there was God, and then what? And that's when I saw that creation is ascribed, which is feminine, was ascribed to masculinity. I'm like, why are we giving femininity to masculinity? And then wondering why women don't value themselves, wondering why women are complaining about a patriarchy. Well, there's the patriarchy, is, undervaluing the woman and overvaluing the man. So then I had a discussion, well, if we restore the divine feminine next to divine masculine, and then we mirror that in the home, so that the center of the family, the emotional center of the family, and this is all, I'm having this conversation before I came upon this map of consciousness, right? Then the woman will be equal to the man, and she'll be the emotional center, and he'll be the physical lead. So I'm having this whole conversation, and trying to understand that afterwards all this happened. I lost 12 pounds, and I faced catastrophic fears. Like, it was, a huge kind of event. And so my kids were really scared. And so I went and figured out, well, what is enlightenment? And this is when I found out that enlightenment is an emotion. It's an expression of the soul. And our souls express ourselves via emotions. So physicists have proven that we all have energy bodies, that our energy bodies express itself out through the heart. And then, the heart's a vortex. Okay, well, that makes sense. And a vortex creates, like the black hole creates. And then we live in a holographic universe. So the vortex is pushing the energy out onto the quantum field, like Dr. Joe Dispenza said. And then we live in a holographic universe, and then we can see ourselves. And we'll get to this physics experiment in front of us in a second, so that I can show you how this all works. But our souls expressing ourselves through emotion, this really helped me see how we have to go down into our fear, guilt, and shame, these deeper, denser emotions here on the left. Like, shame vibrates at 20 hertz. And then all that kinetic energy we get on the way down is what catapults us up our next mountaintop, with enlightenment being the ultimate goal. So, I had like, wow, so we need what we call mental illness in order to attain enlightenment, because we have to explore our depths in order to catapult us to our heights. Life is like jumping on a trampoline. So all of those, like, the people who are born into the traumatic childhoods, those are the souls taking on the more extreme work, the more extreme opportunities to expand their consciousness. Like, learning to be grateful when I had 35 years of debilitating lower back pain, and be grateful for that pain, to be grateful for the box of darkness that I was left with, when that box of darkness gave me 35 years of debilitating lower back pain, failed marriage, failed relationships. It's a lot more difficult to find gratitude for that than it is for less challenging events. But that's the level of challenge my soul needed to have an opportunity, or many opportunities, to expand my own consciousness. So, as difficult as it is, I'll ask you this question. If you're not grateful for what the universe has provided in your life so far, why should the universe provide anything further? Right? So if it's a holographic universe, you're projecting out lack of gratitude, then the universe is going to show that back to you. And this is all based on the laws of physics, which, let's watch this physics experiment. And I'm going to show you how this all works in a second. But this is the tuning fork experiment. Okay, let me show you how this works. Here you have 512 and 440 hertz. And when you hit the 512, the 440 doesn't even notice. There's no connection. There's no relationship. It's as if the 440 is not even there. But see, the universe is a mirror. 440 does not show 512 itself. 440 and 440 show itself. You see the difference? Like if 440 is shame and 512 is love, they don't resonate. They're not a vibrational match. One does not perceive or impact or even, it's like as if the other one is not even there. No attraction. Now there's movement. Now there's resonance. Now there's a vibrational match. Now it can feed itself. Oh, that's me, because it's moving. Yeah, amazing. Like when it's moving, that's what happens. When it's the same frequency, when it's tuned to the same frequency, that's what happened. The universe is a mirror showing me myself in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. So let's use selfishness as an example. When I project selfishness outside of my heart as a vortex onto the quantum field, what is going to move outside of me, what's alive outside of me, are other souls that have that exact same frequency for selfishness. So that's what's going to draw my attention. That's what I'm going to see move. That's what I'm going to perceive. And that is my soul showing me my own selfishness, not someone else's selfishness. Now, are they selfish or not? Probably, but I don't have any control over them. I want to improve myself so that I'm not bringing more selfishness into the universe. And this is why self-love creates heaven on earth, because we live in a holographic universe. So the more each of us projects love out onto the quantum field, and then we resonate and interact with the ones that love themselves, and that's where we all place our energy, slowly but surely, we're going to root out self-hate. Let's keep going. So cardiology. So when I found this about a week ago, I was fascinated how the heart is a vortex. And one of the ways they know the heart is a vortex is that blood flows in a spiral inside the fetus before the physical heart is even formed. The field is a soul governing agency of the particle. And why does it move in a spiral? Because that's more flexible and provides more strength. A straight line is easily breakable, but a spiral provides a lot more stability. So the heart invites blood into motion, allowing coherent motion through rhythmic patterns of coordinated twists and releases. It doesn't pump. It's physiologically, also like based on laws of physics, impossible for one muscle in the center to pump thick fluid through 60,000 miles of veins, which each human has. Right? It creates an energetic vortex. Blood naturally flows in a spiral as it is the most energy efficient in turbulent, reducing ways to move matter. This movement pattern emphasizes the vortex created by the heart, and spiral systems adapt where linear systems break. Resilience. They allow movement without rupture. Oscillating energy is alive energy. So let's take a look at this. I gotta change to the Instagram here. This video that tells us all about it.
Let me just read this because I think it's actually probably one of the best descriptions of the heart that I've ever run across. They taught you the heart was just a glorified meat pump, that it squeezes and pushes blood like some crude mechanical device, a hydraulic engine made of flesh. That is what they want you to believe, because if you buy into that primitive lie, you never ask deeper questions. But it is false. It has always been false. And the real science proves it. Dr. Francesco Tornquas, a Spanish cardiac researcher, discovered what the textbooks refused to acknowledge, that the heart is not a pump. He dissected thousands of hearts and found that the heart is a single continuous muscle band folded into a spiral. He proved that the heart works like a vortex generator, creating suction and torque, not pressure. He called it the helical ventricular myocardial band, and it changes everything. The real movement of the blood comes from pressure differentials, electromagnetic flow, and coherent resonance. The blood spirals naturally. It need not be forced through miles of arteries and capillaries. The so-called pump is not strong enough to push thick fluid through 60,000 miles of tubing. That is basic physics. That lie was dead on arrival. Here is the truth. Blood moves before the heart forms in the embryo. That is, by the way, a documented fact. It flows via frequency, resonance, and electric charge. The body is a field, not a factory. Your heart creates a toroidal electromagnetic field that radiates 6 meters from the body. This field syncs with the earth, the sun, and every living being around you. It is a resonator, a tuner, a conductor. It aligns the rhythm of your cells. It feels, it remembers, it emits, and it responds to emotion, thought, light, sound, and breath. When you feel love, grief, fear, or peace, your heart transmits it. It is the central frequency modulator of your biology, not a pump. And the institutions know this. The Heart Math Institute has measured these fields for decades. They know the heart has more neuronal cells than parts of the brain. They know it is a second brain. They know coherence in the heart transforms the entire nervous system.
Coherence in the heart transforms the whole nervous system. Our souls communicate via emotions in the nervous system, right? So if our soul has a lot of fear, guilt, and shame in it, then the nervous system is calibrated for fear, guilt, and shame because the body is a mirror of the soul. The field is the soul governing agency of the particle. But when your soul has love, compassion, and enlightenment because you've transformed that fear, guilt, and shame into the wisdom and knowledge, then what's coming out of your heart is love, compassion, and enlightenment. And the electromagnetic field just talked about is 5,000 times stronger around the heart than the brain. And the heart sends far more signals in our neurology to the brain than the other way around. So this is why when you learn how to operate your soul and spend much more time in love, compassion, enlightenment, and let go of your fear, guilt, and shame, that naturally recalibrates your nervous system. And then your nervous system, is what controls the body. Then you're not releasing all this cortisol from stress, and the cortisol keeps the sugar high in your blood. And when the sugar is high in your blood, you have tons of inflammation. And we're going to talk about in a minute how spending time in nature, grounding in nature, walking barefoot in nature is so important. That's because your energy field naturally connects to the sun and the earth and all the free radicals that help you from walking barefoot in nature. But when we spend all of our time in the city, disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from nature, then we get really sick. Okay, let's keep going.
So why are they still teaching children a 400-year-old guess from William Harvey that has never been updated?
Okay, let me go back to my other presentation. All right, more about cardiology and the nervous system. The heart, the nervous system, and blood flow all operate through spiral dynamics or vortices. Nature will always move in a spiral when possible. As we learned, it's more resilient. It's more flexible, provides long-term flexibility and strength, resilience. Physiology uses torsion, elastic recoil, and rhythmic suction rather than linear force to move the body in healthy ways. And if you study black holes or vortices, you can't command a vortex. You can put information in and see what comes out, but you can't command it, like you can't command the heart. How do you change what's coming out of the heart? Well, you change what's in the soul. And how do you change what's in the soul? We're going to get to that in a second. Okay. So harmonious embodiment, regulation, and power emerge from coherent oscillation and participation with flow, not domination or control. Okay, we have to create heart coherence. So heart coherence, how do you create that? Well, you access it by stabilizing both your masculinity and your femininity inside of your nervous system. And where the Lakota star feeding ritual really shows us how when you utilize both sides of, like, say, your brain, your nervous system, like communication is feminine, where action is masculine. But talk therapy today only uses the feminine talk therapy. Like, why do we have so many therapists, yet at the same time we have a mental health crisis? Well, I think what it is we're not utilizing both sides of the nervous system, the action and the feminine. The feminine surrenders to the emotions and the masculine acts. And then there's the internal balance that needs to happen. So one cannot command a vortex. You defeat an energy and see what comes out. To change a vortex, one must change input, boundary, rhythm, pressure, differential, and coherence. For example, when adrenaline spikes, that equals chaotic vortices, where regulated breath equals coherent vortices. An immediate spike is like, whoa, that's not coherent. And we're designed to do that. Like if a lion is coming, but adrenaline spikes are happening with people all the time because we are not emotionally healthy people. So, neuroscience and psychology. And the psychology is Carl Jung, and the neuroscience is Dr. Andrew Huberman. And Dr. Andrew Huberman is going to talk about why cancel culture is an external attempt to resolve an internal problem. So we'll cancel it, that's triggering people. Well, saying that does not acknowledge that we live in a holographic universe, that the universe is a mirror, that the heart's a vortices. So if we want someone to stop getting triggered by things outside of them, or even be drawn to these things, then they have to change the inside. But why does this happen? And Carl Jung has something to say about it. There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. To round itself out, life calls not for perfection, but for completeness, for our ability to be emotionally well-rounded, emotionally mature human being who can hear something that they don't agree with and be able to have heart and nervous system coherence internally, understanding that we're all different, that we're going to have different ideas, and this is how we learn and we grow. But canceling it on the outside stops our opportunity for growth. For this, the thorn in the flesh is needed, the suffering of defects, without which there is no progress and no ascent. So let's learn what Dr. Huberman has to say about all of this. Okay.
What we need to do is start to figure out how we can, I think, especially for the next generation of kids, how to teach them to regulate their nervous system so that they recognize that pulse of adrenaline as placing them in a compromised position. Like, we have to leverage the idea that being able to hear and listen hinges on the ability to be calm. So therefore, the ability to be calm is crucial to hearing and listening is crucial to our advancement as individuals and as groups. The problem is everyone's been trying to do this backwards. They've said we all have to get along. We have to cancel culture. We all have to, listen to one another. And I think, again, we have to start from the inside. We have to teach it physiologically. Now, I don't have a master plan on how to do that, but one of the reasons I'm here and one of the reasons I'm, teaching neuroscience on Instagram and not just in my laboratory is until we can learn to regulate the self, I don't think we're going to get where we want to go as a culture. What we need to do.
Definitely. We need to learn how to regulate the self. That's why I teach these DIY trauma healing techniques, because they all teach you how to regulate the self day in and day out by acknowledging that we're souls having a human experience. So now, how do I operate my soul? Because the field is the soul governing agency of the particle. The soul is a soul governing agency of the body. So let's continue learning how to operate our souls. And so why recalibrating one's nervous system is the healing process, okay? Recalibrating the nervous system heals trauma by shifting the body from a chronic survival-based fight or flight. Like I was in my whole life, the fear, the shame, I feared men. I feared half the population until 5 years ago, and I'm 55 now. The day after I saw that and changed that in my soul, operate my soul, I visited my older daughter in public and she noticed immediately, Mom, what's different? What's going on? I was happy, I was relaxed. Oh, let me walk around. What's going on? Not afraid of half the population. Fear, guilt, and shame, it's necessary temporarily, but when we hang on to it for like me for 30, 40 years, 50 years, that's what does the damage. Because when the field is in fear, guilt, and shame and vibrating so low, then I don't want to be in my body. I avoid my body, and I don't want to be in my body means I don't take care of my body. Like I'm not important. I put other people before me because I'm the problem over here. So survival-based fight or flight state back to a state of safety, social engagement, and relaxation. This process uses neuroplasticity to rewire neural pathways, quiet an overactive brain, and release stored physiological tension. Like all of our emotional pain is stored in our fascia. When you release it, it comes out your feet. Neuroplasticity allows the brain to stop associating present environments with past danger. And that's the triggering process. When you let go of the fear, then your body's not mirroring it back to you anymore. And then that's where the neuroplasticity comes in, and it rewires your nervous system to resonate more with love, compassion, and enlightenment. So if I'm not, in my fear, I don't need adrenaline to run from what I'm afraid of. And over too much adrenaline in the body destroys the body, brings it out of balance, out of coherence. So when your nervous system shifts, relationships shift because the universe is a mirror. When I learned how to apologize, then my relationships got better. But I only learned how to apologize at 47 years old. Decision making sharpens. When the only blocks you run into outside of yourself are the blocks inside of yourself. Like when I'm insecure, I get overactive and trying to protect other people. But maybe I could do this for you and this and that. I'm kind of like apologizing for myself. Well, why would I want to do business with someone who is insecure and apologizing for herself? I had to release all of my insecurities so when I talk, my energy comes out my voice. I'm solid. But I had to do the work first. And this is the work. Business problems resolve. Patterns dissolve. You're no longer reacting from old wounds. You are responding from new wisdom and knowledge unearthed from your soul. Okay, your soul and your subconscious, yes, you have your wounds, but there's a whole toolbox of self-belief and self-confidence and self-capacity that is unaccessed. Like, look at what I'm doing. I didn't know I could do this 10 years ago. Wrote a book, all kinds of stuff. So epigenetics. So epi means before your genetics, signifying what happens before our genetics are triggered. And epigenetics teaches us that less than 1% of our mental and physical diseases come from our genetics. Again, emphasizing the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. And Dr. Bruce Lipton is like the godfather of epigenetics. And he has a short video here where I'm going to share it. And it shows us, he goes into how they did research into and adopted two kids who were adopted and how they developed the cancer that is typical in the adopted family, even though they didn't have the markers in their own genetics, and how that works. That was fascinating. Okay. Oh, I gotta find it. Okay, here we go.
Whatever picture you hold in your mind, the brain releases complementary chemistry that matches that picture, and it releases it into the body. And the chemistry of the blood is what controls the genes and the behavior. Children, when adopted into a family where there's cancer running in that family, the adopted child will get the same family cancer. But the point, the adopted child has totally different genetics. What was the point? It was being adopted into a family where the programming of that child is what caused the cancer. It's consciousness who releases the chemistry to the environment that controls the genes. And you can change your consciousness, and you can change your environment. And all of a sudden I said, oh my God, we were programmed to be victims. It turns out we are.
Right. We were programmed to be victims. My parents felt like victims in their childhood and they hadn't healed. And so I spent time in their energy field and I internalized their energy, their emotional pain. So then, oh, I'm a victim. Oh, I'm being oppressed. And zero awareness that we live in a holographic universe. Now, sure, all of that information wasn't out yet. Right, that wasn't out yet. But this is what's really happening. And so we have so many people now that are complaining that, people are so-and-so has privilege and so-and-so is oppressed. Well, they're not acknowledging that we're a soul having a human experience and that we live in a holographic universe so that we can see ourselves. The universe is a mirror showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. So when we change our consciousness, because if my brain doesn't know the difference between a hamburger that I see and a hamburger that I think about. So if I think of a hamburger, my mouth salivates. If I see a hamburger, my mouth salivates. There is no difference. So when I remember traumatic events that I haven't processed through, or they're buried in my subconscious because I can't even remember them, it's too painful, then that script is still running in my soul and my body's still responding to it. Hence all the anxiety that I used to feel, fear all men, until I was 50 years old and I saw that wound and transformed it.
Masters of our genetic activity. And this is the new science called epigenetics. Whatever picture you hold.
Okay, let me stop sharing that and we'll go back to my presentation. All right. Family medicine. So I just love Dr. Gabor Mate. And one of the reasons I love him is because I know he aligns with Dr. Carl Jung. And so here is along the lines of what we just talked about is why do people get sick? We used to think, well, it's their genetics, just turns on at one point. Well, no, now we know from epigenetics that less than 1% of our mental and physical diseases come from our, sorry, my nose is really itchy. Come from our genetics. And Albert Einstein taught us that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Excuse me. Sorry, my nose is like really bothering me. Okay, so what Dr. Gabor Mate said, when people do not know how to say no to others in order to prioritize their own physiological needs, out of insecurity, self-hate, the shame, guilt, and fear, the body will say no for them in the form of disease, such as cancer. So disease like cancer and viruses all resonate below 100 hertz. And as we saw on the map of consciousness earlier, below 100 hertz, those are all the kind of denser, darker emotions. So when we, live in our denser, darker emotions, our fear, guilt, and shame, the body will mirror that back to us in the form of disease. I mean, I haven't gotten sick in 6 years. I never got COVID, and I experience enlightenment all the time. Enlightenment resonates at 700 to 1,000 hertz. But this is why I spend most of my time at 500 to 1,000 hertz, and love is 500 hertz, enlightenment is 700 to 1,000. So because my energy field spends so much time in between 500 and 1,000 hertz, I don't get cancer, I don't get diseases, because those all vibrate at 100 hertz or less. And I practice what I call the love hierarchy. is that self-love comes first. And by self-love, I mean, healthy diet, healthy exercise, walking barefoot in nature, taking care of my body. I don't mean, oh, I'm the princess, everyone. No, appropriate self-care. Give myself space to surrender to my emotional pain, process it through. Then my partner, then my children, then my family, and then my community. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. But family medicine. So we're going to hear a video from Dr. Gabor Mate here in a second. But another Carl Jung quote, but there's such a loneliness epidemic. And so here is why it happens. Why is there a loneliness epidemic? Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, which in cities, there's a lot of people, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views that others find inadmissible. Oh, cancel culture. So cancel culture has a direct line, because inadmissible, others find inadmissible. Well, don't say that because people try to, don't say that because someone's hurt, don't say that. It's like we can't hold opposing views and have a grown, mature conversation, knowing that in life it's never all going to be the same. When people don't know how to change their inside, they go for changing the outside as if our external world is created separate from our internal world. Our external reality is a reflection of our internal reality, holographic universe. But let's learn what Dr. Mate has to say about what people need in terms of attachment and authenticity. Because attachment, when infants attach to their parents in a healthy way, they create healthy endorphins in their bodies, which fuels the attachment. And when they have healthy endorphins in their bodies, then they're able to individuate, express their authenticity in a healthy way, and separate from the family, in 18 to 20 years. But when they can't express their authenticity, then the attachment, is prioritized. So I'll do whatever you say, and I won't say no to you, because prioritizing the attachment is like prioritizing attention over safety. But let's learn what he has to say, because it's fascinating. Okay, that's not it. Here we go.
What happens to a child where the attachment need is not compatible with the need for authenticity? In other words, if I'm authentic, my parents will reject me. If I feel what I feel and express what I feel and insist on my own truth, my parents can't handle it. And parents convey those messages unconsciously all the time. Not because they mean to, not because they don't love the child, not because they're not trying to do their best, but because they themselves are suppressed or traumatized or hurt or stressed. And what does the child do with that? Well, if I give up my attachment for the sake of authenticity, I lose my relationships on which my life depends. Therefore, there's no question. What becomes suppressed is our authenticity, our emotions. And then we become 25 and 30 or 35, 40, and we don't know who we are. What happens to a child?
Right. And we don't know who we are. And that is so common today. We repress parts of ourselves to get along in a relationship. Like I did that with my dad and my stepmom. I did that for many, many years. And I haven't talked to them in 2.5 years because I finally stood up and said no more. And when I stood up and said no more, then, I drew a boundary. I didn't just appease. I wasn't people pleasing anymore. Well, then, okay, well, I guess I can be alone. But I'd rather be alone than rejected. I'd rather be alone than on purpose, knowing I'm going to another person's house who is outright rejecting a lot of me. Okay? I'd much rather be walk on the beach, go out in nature, do something else. All right, let's go on to the next. My nose just keeps bothering me. So this is my favorite Carl Jung quote because it really helped me understand enlightenment. One does not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, but by making their darkness conscious, by acknowledging that we have a darkness, that the world is a projection. And Carl Jung and Albert Einstein were close friends. But imagining like communism is an external solution to an internal problem. It's kind of like a being of light. Well, if communism comes, then everything's going to be fine, as if our external reality dictates our internal reality. Well, that's the wound, that's the lie. That's not acknowledging that we live in a holographic universe. The truth is, our internal reality is projected externally so that we can see ourselves, see where we're doing well, and see where we need to improve. So I encourage you to make your darkness conscious. And when you make your darkness conscious, then you'll naturally recalibrate your nervous system, let go of the fear, guilt, and shame inside of your soul, replace it with love, compassion, and enlightenment for self. And that's how you'll heal yourself. So here is another Carl Jung quote. And so in my book, my book really starts with my suicide attempt. And then what happened afterwards in the hospital and the psych ward and how I started to heal. And then I started to attract men into my life. And this is really how I had to learn that the universe is a mirror. Because if I'm flirting with a guy at yoga and he's not asking me out, then maybe I got something to improve. So I used the men that I attracted into my life, who I didn't go on a date with any of them. And there were 5 of them that led me back to my guy from my childhood. And so and I call them my heroes because they mirrored my wounds back to me. They gave me opportunities to see myself and to make all these improvements. Sorry, my nose is like itching and itching and itching. So yes, Justin Waller and Andrew Tate. In June of 2022, my intuition, as I say, my intuition helped me learn all this, guided me to reach out to Justin Waller. And I saw him on the Fresh and Fit YouTube channel like twice before. And so my intuition said, reach out to him and ask questions about male sexuality, because the first guy had multiple women. And I had never knowingly been with a man who was cheating on me or was, had multiple women. I just say knowingly. I think I just wasn't cognizant of it. I just wasn't able to address it. But here is where Carl Jung goes deep into how we live in a holographic universe, because a lot of people project their hate onto Andrew Tate. And I have a rape wound, and I attracted Andrew into my life, and we attract what we are. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. So what did Carl Jung say? If you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all of his projections, then you might get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow, fear, guilt, and shame. Such a man has saddled himself with new problems and conflicts. He has become a serious problem to himself, as he is now unable to say that they do this or they do that, because they've acknowledged that the universe is a mirror. We live in a holographic universe, that they are wrong and they must be fought against, because when I perceive selfishness outside of myself, that is my soul showing me my own selfishness, right? Such a man knows that whatever is wrong with the world is in himself. What I perceive outside of myself is my soul showing me inside of myself. And if he only learns to deal with his own shadow, he has done something real for the world. He has succeeded in shouldering at least an infinitesimal part of the gigantic unsolved social problems of our day. So I think that if Andrew Tate triggers you, that is your sign that you have wounds with men. I'm not saying Andrew's right or wrong. I'm not even going there, because for my personal life, it doesn't matter whether he's right or wrong. I just use, his presence in my life as a mirror, right? And so let's keep going. Next, I'll show you the exact structure of the 6 Divine Feminine Self-Love Strategies, the free ebook that you downloaded, and how they work together as a system. These are 6 distinct strategies, and they all have a specific function. And but it's not emotional processing. It's a structured method for aligning. It's a method for learning how to operate your soul, how not to get stuck in resentment and fear and shame, and how to move through those emotions and come out the other side with the wisdom or knowledge you're meant to learn from that challenge. So the 6 divine feminine self-love strategies, it's not a belief system. It's a soul operation system. It's how to operate your energy body. So each strategy addresses a different layer of internal experience: emotional safety, self-orientation, how to extract wisdom and knowledge, how to move your energy in healthy ways, how to integrate a healthy nervous system, and how to apply it in the real world. And the heroes 4 and 5 in my book are both fire academy instructors. And so I wrote the strategies in a way to make it simple and easily accessible, especially for first responders. So here's Carl Jung's best DIY trauma healing technique. Please grab your mirror, your journal, and your pen. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes to look at yourself. Hold the mirror up, hold the phone up, and just write down what you see about yourself. If other people keep being brought up, turn that to yourself. If, why doesn't my daughter do this? Ask yourself, why don't you do that? Why doesn't my daughter spend more time with me? Why don't you give yourself more time to walk barefoot in nature, to rest, to self-reflect? Okay, 5 minutes, go ahead. Okay, let's keep going. Now, whatever you wrote down, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, you can start to use this and while I go over these 6 strategies. So let's start with number 1. Appreciate, learn, and forgive equals ego death. This one I came up with when I realized what I was doing repeatedly. I wasn't spending time in remorse or regret when I was successful at turning my wounds into wisdom, like I was with my fear of all men. When I saw that inside my heart, I thought, fear of all men. I'm like, wait, men protect me. And then that was their, I was like, appreciation, learning. The learning was men protect me. And then I just let it go naturally. So what I realized that when I start with appreciation, that I was grateful that I could like see inside my heart and go, what is going on in here? And the gratitude naturally reduces cortisol in the body, naturally opens the heart, opens the nervous system, reduces stress. Then that's a perfect time to self-reflect and go, why is this true inside of me? And what is the wisdom? In the ebook, there's a lot of questions you can use in there, also in my book that I just had up on, which is on Amazon. But a lot of questions you can use to self-reflect. Why was that challenge necessary in life? What can I learn from that challenge? What's the wisdom? What's the knowledge? How can I become a more mature human being? How can I apply this wisdom in my waking reality? That's how you make your darkness conscious. Acknowledge that you have darkness. Because if you don't acknowledge that you have darkness and you're busy playing the victim, then how can you make it conscious if you don't own it? Okay, so when you have internal authority, when you accept that your soul is projecting your wounds and your wisdom outward, that we live in a holographic universe, any kind of block or wound or problem you run into is you. And the only way not to create that in your life is to change yourself. That's when you're really becoming a master of learning how to operate your own soul. So strategy 2 is a love hierarchy. This is how I keep myself ready to pay it forward, is that I know that I have my own cup of love, and that when my cup of love is overflowing and I pour from the overflow, that's what I give to my partner, my children, my family, my community. But I was raised where I put other people before myself because I had so much fear, guilt, and shame in my energy. I was avoiding myself. So if I'm avoiding myself, then, the universe mirrored that back to me in failed relationships. I spent a lot of time alone in my life because I was, that was how the universe showed me, sweetheart, you're avoiding yourself. And so that's why everybody else avoids you, to show you yourself. It's like, oh, that's me. Um, so, and then when I pour from inside of my cup, then I'm pouring from lack. So if I have one pair of shoes and I give away my one pair of shoes to someone, then what am I left with? Right? So I highly encourage you to, think about this and think about like Dr. Gabor said, that Mate said that, when a person doesn't learn how to say no, to prioritize their own self, their own healthy physiology, the body will say no for them in form of cancer and other diseases. So if I can't say no and draw healthy boundaries for myself, and I put the community before myself, my body will mirror that back to me. My life will mirror that back to me. So how is life mirroring back to you when you're not practicing the love hierarchy? That's a good thing to think about. And how can you change and implement the love hierarchy into your life? Learning to surf the waves of life. So life is like jumping on a trampoline. The deeper you go, the higher you fly, based on the laws of physics. The depth of the wound determines the height of the wisdom. And I had to accept that if I want Mount Everest-sized wisdom, then first I had to take on Mount Everest-sized wounds, because a surrender comes before the climb. If you want to climb Mount Everest physically, do you just show up and do it? No, you surrender to the training. A lot of, finding the self-belief and self-confidence out of yourself, right? And then you make the climb. So let me pull this up and share this. Where? No, trying to find it here. Oh, here it is. Okay. And we're going to see, based on the laws of physics, why this is true, why going down into your emotions, like we saw on the map of consciousness, is what is going to bring the kinetic energy necessary to fly higher. And the fastest moving energy is the most transformative energy, enlightenment being the most transformative emotion, right? So how do we get to enlightenment? Let me play for us.
Demonstrations on it and take a closer look. Now, this is a classic physics problem where we have two tracks that start at the same position and end at the same position, but their path from one side to the other is completely different. Now, these balls are able to roll down the tracks, so the question is, if I were to release them simultaneously, which track would get the ball to the opposite side the quickest? Well, let's give it a try. So the shortest distance between 2 points is not necessarily the fastest. Now, what's going on here? Well, we're giving both balls potential energy by lifting them up to a certain position. When I release them, only a small amount of its potential energy is changed into kinetic on this track, so its speed across a track isn't very high. However, on the low road track, I started out at that high position. It drops down, changes that potential energy into kinetic, but then it drops an additional distance, so more potential energy is changed to kinetic, so it's going to cover this distance at a higher speed.
Okay, so I will put the all these videos below, link below in the description so that you can see it. And let's get back to my presentation so we can learn more about how to learn to surf the waves of life. So this one, learning to surf the waves of life, is just basically acknowledging that our souls plan our lives based on our wounds for self-improvement opportunities. And I really, sorry, my nose again. Oh, I had to accept this, that after I attempted suicide, I noticed, I'd like, oh, a high, and then I dropped to a low, and then a high and dropped to a low. Like after I came out of the hospital, I called my stepfather, and then he told me that he was terminally ill with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Well, I didn't tell him about my suicide attempt. And I didn't tell him that I had to take my ex-husband to court for child support because I had both my son who had mild autism, he was 20, and my youngest daughter who had just returned from rehab for an eating disorder living with me because they wouldn't live with him. And so the day after I won at court, I went to my stepfather's funeral, and it was very difficult. And so the high and then dropping the low, the high. And what I had to acknowledge is that, I learned to surf the waves of life I started learning about 5 years before that. And so when you learn to surf, you go on the 1 foot waves, right? That was definitely a much bigger wave. And I attempted suicide, huge wave. But then I was getting, go slower and slower, right? When you learn to surf, one and then bigger, like people who surf the 70-foot waves out of Portugal. Right? A lot of training to learn how to surf those waves. But when we learn how to surf the waves of life, it doesn't mean challenging things don't happen. It means that I know how to move through those challenges and come out the other side without hanging on and creating a tons of pain in my body, like the 35 years of debilitating lower back pain that I suffered from. And that only went away about 5 years ago after my suicide attempt, because I learned how to process my emotions, how to let that emotional pain out of all the structures around my womb, my creation, my femininity. Let's go on to number 4, which is the universe is a mirror. Now, we've already done this a lot, so I'm not going to get into a deep dive here. I know, sorry. I had reconstructive jaw surgery, so I had a lot of my voice was shut down in early childhood. And so I've always had problems with my mouth, one of them being I had to have reconstructive jaw surgery. So now that all this is healing in me, all the nerves are healing, and I get strange feelings in my nose and around my mouth. And that's really what's going on, but it's the healing process. Now I'm using my mouth to come out and share my wisdom. And so there's more healing going on in my nervous system, right? I'm loving on my mouth, so these nerves are healing. Okay. So we've done this one, so I'll keep going. But changing the world is an inside job. We live in a holographic universe. Self-love creates heaven on earth because the universe is a result of what's projected out of our hearts. So when I love myself, love's coming out of the vortex in my heart, and that's what other people are having an opportunity to interact with. And the more people that put that out of their own heart, then jointly we create heaven on earth. Like I live in Ventura, California. I live on the beach in Southern California. The only hell I have in my life are my relationships. Okay, so our external reality is a reflection of our internal reality. Your external experience is shaped by the wounds and wisdom stored in your nervous system that is stored in your soul. And how you feel about yourself is projected externally and determines what you notice, perceive, and attract into your life, like that Carl Jung quote. So there's also, let's go on to the next slide, and there's a physics experiment that will show us how this works, okay? So your soul naturally aligns with the highest vibrating energy or emotion. And let's see how that works with this with this physics experiment about spontaneous synchronization. Yeah, it's fascinating. I love this one. Here we go. Let me make it bigger. We're going to notice the second and the third are the fastest moving metronome, and that the other three, quite quickly here, align with the fastest moving one. And there's no, emotion to get hung on to. It's just pure energy. All right, I will stop it here. But so if you want to align with my energy, let me bring back up the other one, then you can spend time, align with me and all the wisdom that I have in my soul, because I experience enlightenment a few times a week now, all the time, as part of my healthy emotional range as an adult. Then, use my 6 self-love strategies. You can rewatch this webinar. We're going to do meditation and shamanic drumming in here in a minute. I'm going to show you that. Then you can go on my YouTube channel. You can buy my book. But when you spend time in my energy, the wisdom says, the summary of the 5 people you spend the most time around, make me one of those 5 people. And that's all for free. If you want more in-depth help, then in a minute, we're going to get into how you can do that. So pain is an initiation process to personal growth, and I had to accept that life is like jumping on a trampoline. The deeper you go, the higher you fly. And when right before I healed my lower back pain, my intuition told me that pain is beautiful because it reveals what longs to be healed. And, we only change when it's hard. When things are going well, why change? Right? And fluctuating energy is alive energy. In our soul, we have to experience those deeper, darker, denser emotions, fear, guilt, and shame. That's where we build the kinetic energy to catapult us to our next mountaintop. So it's all how we mature and expand our emotional range. So here are the self-care strategies that I used to heal from my childhood trauma. First, I learned Reiki. And they would, over the weekend and doing the Reiki and self-reflecting. I let go of a lot of stuff. I cried. I almost threw up one time, but I highly recommend learning Reiki. And what does Reiki do? Reiki helps you channel more love into your soul and let go of more hate. And then when you do it to yourself, you learn to do it to other people. It's as simple as that. Healthy exercise. Like men, the most cortisol reducing, testosterone producing activity is chopping wood. And I'd recommend vocalizing during that, because then you're engaging both sides of your neurological system. The feminine is the vocalizing and the masculine is the acting. When you engage both, that's how you create internal coherence and calm inside the nervous system. For women, the most cortisol reducing, feminine hormone producing is walking and gentle yoga. So you can Google that and find out. Also, healthy diet. Find a diet that's inflammation reducing, cortisol reducing. That goes together, because when you have increased cortisol in your blood, then your blood hangs on to more sugar, and then you crave sugar. So definitely address the diet. Nature. Walk barefoot in nature. As we saw, our energy field needs to connect to the sun and the earth. And then the free radicals from the earth come up and help the nervous system, help us reduce inflammation in the body and calibrate the nervous system. And so definitely walk barefoot in nature will really help you. And then establish a gratitude practice. Be grateful for your home. Be grateful for your job. Be grateful for the trees, and just start somewhere. You can Google that online for free as well. A gratitude practice. That'll really help you get going in the right direction. And then here we have my YouTube channel. And what's there? There is my meditation and shamanic drumming video, which you can listen to. And that will help you ground into your body and open up your heart and learn to listen to yourself. So I highly recommend you do that. There's more educational videos there, healing tips and spiritual humor, all to help you with this free DIY trauma healing techniques. And the Lakota DIY trauma healing technique is called star feeding. So Lakota healers used it for those who lost loved ones or survived violence. And the person didn't talk about the trauma, they fed it. They'd gather stones representing pain, then carry them to a river and release them one by one while speaking the memory out loud to the water. And the final stone was kept as a reminder of the grief, that the grief was witnessed. And I'll put a link below as well. But this engages both sides of the brain. It acknowledges I have pain. It acknowledges I need to speak my pain. I need to act through my pain. There's the feminine and the masculine. And that is what really helps you get through your healing. So if you want to work with me, I do a 2-hour private client session. We meditate, and we do shamanic and Reiki drumming. And then we'll utilize all the different self-reflective techniques that I've taught to help you interact with your shadow to recalibrate your nervous system. And by shadow, I mean the wounds in your shadow, the subconscious lies that you're telling yourself that you're not lovable or you're not deserving, or, those kinds of things. And then we'll apply strategies to your specific internal blocks. And then you'll receive a video recording of your session for ongoing use. And what it's worth. So the 2-hour private session is worth $2,500. And then the application of the framework $700 and the session recording $300 for a total value of $3,500. But because you're through the webinar, there's a listed price of $19.97. You'll get that as an email. And if you're military or first responder, you'll have 4 sessions for $19.97. You can use that alone, or you can give them to other people, or we can do it as a group, whatever is best for you. But I know the mental health crisis is so serious right now for first responders, so I really wanted to reach out and help out there. So if you want to move forward now, you can use this QR code to purchase a session. And go in there. Additionally, you'll be receiving an email where you can log in there anytime and purchase a session. But really, you can get going with my 6 Divine Feminine Self-Love strategies, the self-care strategies I gave out, the Lakota healing session, and the Carl Jung DIY trauma healing techniques. You can listen to the other people on YouTube, my YouTube channel. There's a lot of ways that you can receive free guidance to help you heal from your childhood trauma. So if you're not ready to purchase yet, that's okay. You can book a 15-minute call and you'll get an email about that as well. And just think about what needs to happen to make this situation work out perfectly for us both. How can we be in alignment? And book your 15-minute call. This is not a pressure decision, but it's a clear decision. If you want more help beyond what I've given today to help you really implement this into your life, to create a super deep connection with me so that my enlightenment experiences can really help you expand your emotional range, hopefully to include enlightenment, let me know. Reach out. So this really works for people who value autonomy, efficiency, stability under stress, and self-command. This is a self-led technique. If you want someone to talk to every week, this is not for you. So you can purchase now, or you'll be getting an email at the after the end of the webinar. And again, here's my book on Amazon. If you want to check it out, I have 17 reviews, 4.9 stars. People really appreciate it. People really appreciate how I didn't idolize or criticize Justin and Andrew, how I use them as a mirror for self-improvement. And if you felt resonance during this training, that wasn't emotion, that was nervous system level alignment called resonance. That's how you know this is relevant without needing convincing. Did you feel resonance? So there's two paths. You can schedule a session now, or you can book a 15-minute call and you'll get that at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.